apparently talking fireworks for the next half hour. I'm pitching this as a bit of a Pyromusical masterclass, so we're going to talk more about the design side, but a lot of this is going to obviously hinge on the plugin I developed called CC Fireworks. We'll get into that in a bit more detail in a second. But to first, I'm going to start off, I'm going to talk a little bit about real fireworks in this, which obviously I'm not a professional in that world, and where I talk about real fireworks, obviously we're using that to apply to the game, and you know, don't take this as how to be safe in the real world. So don't try this in real life, but try it at home in Minecraft. And then I'm also just to mention that the fireworks that you're going to see, some of them are going to use in development features from the plugin. There'll be a link to the plugin at the end of it. It is available for sale. We'll talk more about that later, but some of the features are not yet in the public release because they're a little unfinished, but they're cool and I'm going to show them off. And again, I'm going to try and keep a lot of what I talk about kind of transferable, so even if you're going to use Effect Master or Easy Shows or whatever other plugin you like, hopefully a lot of this will still be useful, even if you don't want to buy my plugin. So to start with, we're going to talk through a few different types of fireworks. So we're going to start with things that tend to be on the ground, and I've realized I forgot to open my notes, which is very sensible. So let me just do that. Great, we're going to talk about stuff on the ground. So there's a few different types of ground fireworks. I'm going to show you some pictures, the real ones on the slideshow. And then I should be able to demo some of them in the game to see kind of how they look. And then once we get kind of through some of that, we'll talk about some other design choices. Then we've got a nice little 5-minute demo show. And then we'll do some more talk about design stuff. So first off, some of the ground effects obviously tend to be things that are launched from the ground. So as long as you can see where they launch from, you kind of see the cool effect. They don't tend to go high, and that's, you know, their own class of things. That includes like comets, mines, fountains, and gerbs. There's also things like fireballs, waterfalls, flares, and strobes. Some of those are slightly harder to get in the game, but hopefully we'll be able to give you an example of some of those if I find the right demo. So here we go. These are some comets. And we've got them in various settings where it's doing different things. That's some mines using bursts. You can do them with particles as well. And then we can also create fountains with particles, and you can use various different particle things. You can angle them. This has been possible for quite a long time. There's a limitation on which particles you can use because of the speed they go. And then obviously the flash particle does work as a strobe, you just can't change the color because Minecraft is dumb and doesn't let you do that. I feel like there's one more thing that fires at the end of this. I'm going to have to wait for the strobe to stop before it gets there. I have played faster than I did when I practiced this. Oh, no. Yep, there you go. It's a nice fireball at the end. And I forgot about those. So moving on from that, we get things that are aerial. Now in professional displays, they tend to use shells rather than rockets. And the shells go in the mortar racks that you can see on the right-hand side there. Whereas like a rocket is the thing on a stick that you know, most of the time is the thing you can buy. Rockets are slightly less predictable in where they go, which is one of the reasons that professionals don't tend to use them, but also the shells obviously also could do bigger break and things like that. But I can give you a demo of the difference between rockets and shells. That hopefully you can see. These are using like the vanilla rockets. They go any random place, and whereas a shell will sort of go up, slow down, and then explode, and it stays in that kind of physics. And that's much more realistic to what professional displays will use. And obviously there are a lot of different aerial effects they use in shells, most of which are very difficult to get in the game. Some of them are easier than others, and you'll see a few of the different types. You'll see some peonies, you'll see some peonies with palms in them, you'll hopefully see a brocade thing, and various things. So yes, I will touch on the 64 block limit a bit later. But yes, most of these fireworks should be within that. When I did the test show, before the event, I did have a quick look, and they should all fit. But yes, there is a limit that by default it's 64 blocks for fireworks. Beyond that, you can change your entity setting. You can change your entity tracking range to increase that, but you have to do that both on the server and client side. But that does work to increase that range. But yeah, so of the types of aerial shells and single shots as well, or the ground stuff is often called single shots. You also have something called cakes, which is just effectively a bunch of tubes shoved together. So it's usually a box with a whole bunch of things, and they fire sequentially, or oh, I missed it then. I'll do that later. So this is an example of a cake with some comets that just has a little barrage. And we can do the same with shells. They can obviously change different things. These will be grouped together. A lot of shell cakes also have a little flourish at the end. There's also a type of cake called a fan cake, which is where the angle comes in. Because obviously these fireworks are getting a little bit stuck on the roof, which is why the demo display fires even higher above us. And then this last one here is what's called a fan slice, which is, it's a slice of a cake where all of the entire width of the fan fires in one go. I'm still not sure why they're called cakes, but there's also things called candles that is a thing. I'm sure there's a reason. But yes, so that's kind of hopefully giving you some indication of what the real ones look like. Oh, look at that, it's nighttime now. Well, that's sensible. So we can also show you these are what they have for single shot racks. So all those like comets and mines, in order to fire them, they tend to put them in like little metal racks that control the angles. And I'm showing you that because you can then recreate those in the games. This is a screenshot from on my server where I've got some little single shot racks and some mortar racks at the back. There's some realism issues with this because the mortar racks probably are too close and wouldn't be oriented that way, but we're not going to worry too much about that because this is Minecraft and it's safety distances aren't as important. So we will talk a bit about firing layout. So with professional shows, you tend to have a very discrete set of positions that things are fired from, and that depends a bit on the site you're at and what you have available, how many fireworks you have. Particularly with the bigger items, you'll have fewer sections, so you might have 3 stations with the really big fireworks much further back, and then maybe 9 or 11 or 14, 15 along the front with like the smaller things, and that's quite common. And obviously in the real world they have to adhere to safety distances, and that for most professional fireworks is at least 50 meters, but given we can only see fireworks within 64 blocks, that's a little impractical in Minecraft. So we don't tend to do that, but that is, that gives you a ballpark of where they end up in reality. And then some of the bigger shells might be 100 or 200 meters away from the crowd, which again doesn't work for Minecraft because you won't see them. But a lot of these positions will be dictated by the sort of the firing modules in the real world. So you'd have like a box that you connect all the fireworks to that is what actually triggers them and does the timing, which obviously is not something we can replicate in the game in the same way. But that's to give you an example of how you can lay a field out. I think this is the example that's on the plugins wiki, where you've got 9 stations along the front for all the sort of small single shots, so your comets, your mines, and then behind that there's like 5 positions for smaller shells and 3 for the big ones, with then your safety zone in front and a buffer zone behind, just to make it look a bit more realistic. And to give you an example, this is how I've got it laid out on my server. So if you've seen the display that I submitted for best show, that's how it fires. It's that exact same layout, more or less, in front of a Ferris wheel. So now we're going to talk a bit about music choice. So this obviously only applies to Pyromusicals, which is fireworks to music. If you're doing it without music, you can ignore me. But there's a few things you want to look for when you're choosing what songs you want. Which is you want lots of dynamic shifts in your music, so you want to hear changes and be able to hear points where you go, oh, this should sound different, or this should this should do something different now, or there's a very clear point where you want like a bunch of explosions to happen and things like that, and having some rhythm to it, so you can so you actually have like a very clear like a beat that you can follow to some extent. It doesn't always have to be that way. Because Minecraft runs at 20 ticks per second, unless you change that, you might find trying to get things to be 100, 120, or 150 BPM fits the game nicer. You can get your timing closer because it'll be an even number of ticks between each beat, which can just clean up your timing nicer. And of course, you can do any style you want, and you can often use a mix of genres, things like that. And I think with that, I'm going to fire the demo display, which means you need to look up. And I'm going to be a bit quiet while this plays. And hopefully you should hear the audio in the game and on the stream. So anyway, yeah, look into the sky and enjoy.
towards you. I want a tour of your world and what we can do, but
So there you go. There's a nice little demo of a little Pyromusical. To answer someone's question halfway through that, um, that has taken me about a month on and off of like random little bits here and there, but that's also at the same time adding a bunch of features into the plugin to make a lot of that work, because you might have noticed a lot of those were not Minecraft fireworks, and therefore they were created by my plugin. So yes, so that with that over, we're going to talk a little bit about some limitations of Minecraft. That was 5 songs. So that was the William Tell Overture, which was the note block composition at the start, and then 4 songs from Approaching Nirvana, which was Icy, Scorpion, I'm on Fire, and What If. Which those names are on the screen if you're interested. So obviously Minecraft has a particle limit, and hopefully in that show I just about avoided it. But to give you, if I find the demo, now Minecraft has a particle limit. It's 16,384 particles, and if you're not careful, you can get close to that very quickly. Particularly as like a large ball with a trail in the fireworks. About 4,000 particles in the zone. So if you're filling the sky with stuff, you have to be careful not to exceed that, because it starts to look a little bit bad. And you'll see in a moment via the sequence from the show where it doesn't go over that, and that looks a lot better seeing them actually diminish properly. It's just something to watch for, and that you can still create like a very busy look without hitting that limit. You just have to be careful of it. One of the other things to be aware of course, as we've already kind of touched on, there is a visual limit with 64 blocks, and then you also, the like white particle trails behind a firework rocket are visible within 32 blocks. So if you want to see those particle trails, you need to be within 32 blocks. If you don't want to see them, you've got to be more than 32 blocks away. Or you cheat and make it not a firework rocket that's launched into the air, but that's maybe just me that makes it snowballs for everything. One of the other things is that obviously the vanilla fireworks are not very big. Because obviously that's a burst, which is kind of okay, and then you get up to a large ball, but that's as big as they go, and I wasn't happy with that. And you probably saw I cheated. So that is a feature in CC Fireworks that is coming to the plugin soon, called Hybrid Shots, which is effectively you can chain a whole bunch of things together so that you like launch a firework and then it launches a load of stars, and that means you can make bigger ones. It does still have the same limitations of being visible within 64 blocks, but because a lot of it is particles, those are less restricted in that way. So you can, once you saw that get into the sky, you probably couldn't see the snowballs that were actually what was moving, but you saw the particle trail behind it, which kind of works the same way. Beyond that, we're going to talk a bit about actually designing your show. And so obviously your vertical space is your canvas with fireworks. So even though you have a lot of depth to it, you can tend to kind of consider it on quite a flat plane because of the way we view it. And so you can therefore apply your same rules of composition that you would for building, for photography. So that's your rules of thirds, your halves, and things like that. Quite often in shows, you'll kind of have 3 distinct bands where you'll have like the big shells at the top, the small shells in the middle, and the ground effects at the bottom. You can of course choose to ignore that, and there are some shells that are different to that, like some of the horse tails you might have seen earlier, which are the ones that kind of explode and fall. In the quite small ones, those tend to go up into that like higher band, but they obviously are not a very big explosion. And I can give you another example of that just looking at a screenshot from a fireworks show in Minecraft, just to give you a sense of how that works. And yes, my server is open to the public. We're mostly a survival server, but we do have a little theme park as well, which we are currently rebuilding. So all my fireworks displays are not in the public server yet. We're working on the new one, and we occasionally bring them out for special events. But when we launch our new server, they'll be on a rotation of every so often. there'll be a link to my server at the end of the thing in the last slide. We're going to talk a bit about color palettes as well. So real fireworks have a slightly more limited color palette to what you think. There's a lot of warmer tones, partly because it's fire and blues tend to be a bit duller. And of course, clown vomit is a valid choice if you really want a whole mixture. Let's just give you some examples of like these are quite commonly colors that commonly come together. You often get a lot of reds and greens mixed together in cakes and things like that. It's just something to think about when you're choosing your effects and how you pair colors. If you watch a lot of real fireworks shows, you'll notice that a very similar color palette comes up a lot because that's what is readily available to buy in terms of fireworks. We'll also talk a bit about randomness. So as you probably saw, a lot of those fireworks they are a little random, and that's quite an important thing as well, because real fireworks are not random, or are not perfect. They always have a little randomness. So if they all just go in a straight line, it looks very boring. So a little bit of randomness is good. Too much randomness is also bad. And there's particularly if you've got like fan effects or you've got specific angles that you're creating, like kind of that doesn't work quite as well when it's that random compared to something like that. But just you can see a couple of screenshots from some real fireworks shows there that kind of show the variation that does exist. Again, if you're using CC Fireworks, a lot of the built-in effects already have random factors built in. You can tweak that. Some of the other things you can consider is thinking a little bit about budget. And obviously, budget's immaterial to us, but if you want to be realistic, you have to remember that all the big and fancy things are expensive. Lots of single shots require a lot more labor. So if you've got like hundreds and hundreds of individual cues, one, it's going to take you forever to program it. But also someone theoretically has to go out there, take the firework, put it in the rack, plug it in the right place, and hope it's in the right slot and facing the right way, because it's very easy to end up with 3 fireworks going one direction and then the last one goes completely the wrong way because someone got their left and right the wrong way around when they were reading a bit of paper. And so, yeah, just being aware of those things. Cakes can be quick and cost effective. And that's something to think about as well. And then obviously how often your show fires may affect your budget too. If you're doing like a big, extravaganza once every now and then, you can plow more money into it. You can put a bit more effort in. If it's something that like every night your theme park has a fireworks show, you might want to pare that back and be a bit more selective of, making sure you've got some interesting things, but you don't want to get too carried away with, kind of like filling the sky with loads and loads and loads of stuff all the time. You might just have a few very nice shells that come out every now and then as very interesting stuff. One of the other things we'll talk about, there's a lot of very common ways of arranging fireworks, some of which you'll have seen in that demo display, some of which I may have not achieved all that well. But you'll see a lot of single shot patterns will follow one of these many crudely drawn diagrams there, where you've got sort of fans on the right, either with like individual fans in multiple positions, or you create an entire fan or an inverse fan, with your row of single shots. And the same with like you've got angle controls, you get V's, things like that are very common. The same is kind of true with shells, though often with a lot of shell patterns, the like smaller shells will have like a wider fan radius, and then as you get bigger and bigger, they get straighter and straighter. And that's usually just a practical thing of they need to fire straight up so that they don't veer off, and try and keep the fire kind of keeps everything in this kind of consistent position. That's just all of those laid on top of each other there. And just to kind of illustrate that point home, here's a screenshot of a real show with just those lines drawn over the top to show you kind of how that translates. Obviously you won't necessarily do all of them at the same time, but that does tend to be quite a common thing. There's also some common stuff that you often get Long effects like fountains and things like that are great for masking bits of music where it's not particularly rhythmic. You haven't got anything that kind of gives you something to work off, so you might just pad that out with a slow with like a slow effect, like fountains and such. And then you can also do things like falling leaves and horsetails are also quite great for things that are not the music isn't necessarily big and loud for you to throw lots of shells in there, but it still has the sort of rhythmic sense. So I can actually give you a quick demo of that if you look up again. This is pulled from the demo display I did earlier. Those sound effects. It goes on longer than I thought it did. Yes, those subtle effects are quite important too. One of the other things you'll find quite a lot is they'll add full finales. So as you kind of could tell, there's 5 songs in that demo show that you saw. There was about 4 finales that you probably noticed, and then there was a pause before you get into the next thing, and that's quite a common trick people use to keep you interested, and also it's just like we wow you and then surprise you that it keeps going, which is a great way to just maintain your people's attention. We'll also talk about some various tips. So you can obviously be inspired by professionals. There's lots of videos of pyromusicals on YouTube. There's particularly some competitions that are out there that you can go and look at, and you can. I probably shouldn't encourage you to just straight up lift other people's designs, but it gives you ideas of how they react to different styles of music, how they can work within those bounds, and you might get some really nice ideas. And you can also look at the fireworks and go, actually, I want to try and make something that looks like that. The other thing is you can a lot of the particles in the game don't illuminate themselves, and that's where the invisible light blocks can be really useful. If you place them in the sky above where you're firing, you can the fireworks will go into that, and you'll see the particles light up. And if you're high enough off the ground, you won't see that light cast on the ground. I'm also conscious I'm a little over time, so I'm sure someone in the production team will shout at me if I go on too long. I'm nearly at the end, I promise. Beyond that, celebrate your fancy things. So don't just fill the sky with all the really fancy things that you've spent hours working on the design of this. Okay, oh yeah, my clock disappeared. Sorry, I broke that screen too clearly. But yeah, here's some of the nice shells. Just kind of you can fly them individually, so you can kind of see what they are, and you don't want to you don't want to crowd it so much that you can't actually see those effects. And then obviously be wary about going too fast. A lot of that is also just that Minecraft will struggle because you'll just end up with way too many particles and way too many things happening. Beyond that, be wary of length. If you get above like 20 minutes in like real fireworks, things get boring. And things like that, and hold things back. Don't do all of the fancy stuff right from the get-go. Hold something that you can pull in at the last minute. Beyond that, structuring your display is important. Doing some planning. These things do take time to put together, as I alluded to. This took a month. So there's some lovely sketches there of me planning. I think that's the William Tell Overture bit at the start of it. Don't rush this. I'm trying. And then this is another one from a similar from another display. This was Bangarang, I think, the middle of. And you kind of see it's a rough guide with like notes on what colors and things I'm planning to use. And then beyond that, just a few other tips is to split your display into sections, and you can work systematically through them, build them piece by piece, and particularly with where you've got like multiple songs. If you put each song in individually into the game rather than just putting like one long soundtrack, you can then, you can do that section at a time and you can split it up that way. And that's a very useful way to be able to work through it. And in CC Fireworks, we have what are called sequences. That is how you actually build the timing of stuff. And within that, you can set sequences to trigger other sequences. So you can kind of like have one that lasts, one that is the master for the entire display that then splits up into each song, and then each song has different sections. And that's a great way to kind of like split things up. So one, manageable chunks you can work through, and you also, and it's also organized so you can kind of, if you need to go back and change something in an earlier thing, you can go and do that. And it's also just really where you can repeat stuff, and that is absolutely fine. That comes to the end of everything I sort of prepared. If you're interested in getting the plugin that powered all of this, again, the new stuff that is all of the very fancy fireworks you saw, that will come in an update in the next week or two. It's probably going to be a beta update with some stuff that's not working, but you can visit clownercraft.net/plugins, where you can find links to buy it. If the price of CC Fireworks is a limiting factor, please drop me a message on Discord and we can probably arrange something for you. It'd be great to see more people actually using this plugin and having a lot of fun with it. And the server is just clownercraft.net. Cool. I guess any other questions before I get kicked off the stage for talking too long? So thank you all for your kind words. I'm glad you enjoyed the display. For people that have missed it, I will put a link to a video of it in the CNC live or in the CNC Discord later. Can I shake your hand off? We can try. That's a good question. Cool. It seems that there's not any other questions, so thank you very much, and I'm glad you all enjoyed that. There is not a limit on how long a show can be. If I hold a firework in real life, what would happen? It would be painful. I have used spectral arrows. I have used arrows for some of them. I think the snowball is what I settled on as like the relatively good-sized entity for stuff. Fire charges also work. Their physics are a bit funky. CC Fireworks kind of overrides a lot of that. Oh yeah, if you're holding a firework in real life and it's not lit yet, then you're probably fine, but you still keep it at arm's length. And like if the fireworks are wide and you never like look over the hole. Item displays don't move at the moment. I need to adjust how the plugin works in order to make item displays animate effectively. What inside do you think? Is mostly in real life fireworks. So